Hi guys. More and more cash is being found in Partha Chatterjee's houses, and there was even a robbery in a place called Baruipur where he has a bungalow, and it was robbed apparently by some people last night, and they took away sacks of some things and some furnitures according to local witnesses. So obviously we have already lost a lot of not obviously, there's a hard possibility that we already lost a lot of evidence in that robbery. But that makes me get to the think about the root causes of these situations and not the symptoms. So aren't we getting too worked up about the symptom? Did Partha Chatterjee grow up thinking I'll be the most corrupt person in Bengal? Did Partha Chatterjee, when he started politics, he was a student leader in Congress, was he dreaming of becoming the most corrupt man in Bengal? And is everyone else around him not corrupt just because they haven't gotten caught yet? So in that context, let us discuss today freebies, welfareism. Now it's impossible for me to keep these topics in a concise format, 5 to 10 minutes. I can't do it. Maybe I hope it will end in 10 minutes. But for those who want to check out only the shorter version, I have made some points. I've written down 16 points in context of this topic. Let me just read out those points in 3 or 4 words, and then I'll go elaborately into each of those points. My first point is that freebies is equal to corruption. Corruption is the hallmark of a welfare state. Welfare state is obviously the technical term and the academic term for a state, for a country which offers too much freebies. My second point is that, remember, in economics, price is not equal to cost. Net gain or net profit for the society is not the same as individual gain or individual profit, and poor people remain poor in a welfare state. And my third point is a less corrupt license Raj or a lesser magnitude of a license Raj does not justify the existence of a license Raj. Number 4 is concepts of wealth creation and bigger pie, things which socialists don't understand. Okay, number 5 is elites in poor countries are almost equally rich. By elites, I don't mean the richest of the country, but overall, the upper class, the upper creme de la creme of the, financially speaking, that rich class of every country is almost equally rich. But the rest of the country is usually fucked, and that's the hallmark of a welfare state. The Soviet Union implosion. My 7th point is black markets, which is the hallmark of welfare states and freebies. Number 8 is creates problems and then offers solution. And the additional statement to that is that almost every problem that welfareism pretends to solve was created by itself. The next point is food wastage. We'll elaborate on that later. Then hospital waiting periods, insurance, free insurance, hospital administrative bureaucracy. Next point is charities and social responsibility. We need to discuss that in this context. And then whether is it bad people or a bad system. And then everyone is doing something illegal in India in some way or the other. Next point is government failure. Here we will have to discuss Sanjeev Sanyal. And the last point is government being a faceless entity, bigger the country and bigger the corruption if it's a welfare state. Now let's get into the first point. Are freebies equal to corruption? Now, when is that not the case? When are freebies not the case? When it's a small state or a small country and a more or less culturally homogenized country where you know all your neighbors, where you share common values and share common customs. You know what I was discussing in the Prakhar Gupta videos, that Prakhar Gupta and Kushal Mehra fawn over the individualism of America, but individualism in America only works because they individually do similar things in their neighborhood or in the country. Individually they're hunting or gun rights, all of that works because it's mostly done by every white man and woman in the country, except maybe some liberals in New York and California. And the other example would be that when is this not the case, that in Scandinavian countries, leftists in America have been shouting this from the top of their voices for the last 10 years, that See Scandinavia, see Norway. Norway has so many free stuff. We need to do that in USA. And of course, USA has not been allowing that stuff. Otherwise, they would have voted for Bernie Sanders. The Bernie Sanders crowd has always been saying that, see, Scandinavian countries do it so well. And we can talk about Arvind Kejriwal here, who does free stuff with pretty good efficiency. Mamata Banerjee gives away free stuff, but it's not even very efficient. Yogi Adityanath is probably the best example of freebies in India, and Narendra Modi to some extent, because he has been giving out free vaccines and free food and rice during the pandemic. And those are extreme situations. Even if I'm a economically far-right libertarian, I probably wouldn't oppose those things. But I would raise some questions about the quality. I would be at least cautiously skeptical about the quality whenever something free is being delivered. Okay, now let me first counter the obvious argument that always comes from the pro-welfarist, pro-freebie people. You don't need freebies. The accusation would be to me. You don't need a freebie. You have a nice mic, you have a nice chair, you are doing you're doing a podcast and stuff. You obviously don't need free stuff. You don't need free rice. Now, what these stupid people, these educated academics fail to understand is that why are they poor? Why do people need free ration? Why are they so poor that they can't afford it? Maybe the lowest of the lowest strata, economical strata of a country might not be able to afford it. But why is it that the class above the lowest class, the lower middle class, the middle class, why do all of them need free stuff? Why are they so poor? What's driving up the costs of the products that should have reached them affordably? What's that magic, you stupid fucks? That the thing that remains high cost for these people, the thing that causes all these economic stratas to love freebies, is the fact that it's free. Because when you make something free, the cost of it doesn't disappear. The person who was producing those things, he's not going to suddenly make it for free just because the government made that product free. That stuff is made free with other people's taxes, with a gigantic bureaucracy who has to be paid to deliver those things to you for free. And there has to be another separate watchdog machinery to prevent the bureaucrats from becoming too corrupt. All these are included in the costs. And that brings me to the concept of net gains of a society versus net gains of an individual. Here the individualism argument falls flat, because even from speaking from a free market perspective, we are always talking about the greater good or the larger social harmony, words which would trigger any libertarian, even people like Kushal, Mehra and Prakhar Gupta. They think that's equal to the Communist Manifesto. No, even in a free market sense, we would argue that just because it's free for you doesn't mean it's free for the society. The entire society is paying up for the free product, and in that way, that poor person who was getting it for free is going to remain even poor, because he can't be hired by people, and at least he can't be hired and paid enough salary, because the person who was going to pay the salary is probably paying the tax for giving him free rice. Okay, so net gain for a society is not net gain for the individual, and net profit for an entire society is not the same as net profit for an individual. Now that we have countered the left-wing argument, let us counter what a BJP supporter would counter me with. He would say, see, Narendra Modi is giving away free stuff so efficiently, and see, Yogi Adityanath is giving away free stuff efficiently. But the basic flaw in that argument is that he is going to be able to mention only these two names in the history of BJP and probably welfare politics in India who have done this efficiently, and so far. Now, in my heart, personally, I believe that Yogi Adityanath is a person I can trust with these things. But there are two arguments to this. Would I trust everyone between Yogi Adityanath and the population? The person who will deliver those free stuff. Yogi Adityanath is not going to go door to door giving free food. Do I trust them? And why should I trust them? And if I don't trust them, what's going to prevent those people from being corrupt? An extra set of watchdog agencies who will also be paid from my taxes. And the second argument would be, How many Yogi Adityanaths do you have in your party, BJP supporters? Why do you have this gigantic belief that everyone is going to be as clean as possible? How many Narendra Modis have you produced? How many Yogi Adityanaths have you produced? Yogi Adityanath is not even a BJP guy. He's an outsider to all these things, which is why he has a lot of constraints even today in policy making, at least in choice of candidates and stuff like that, as far as I've learned from Sanjay Dikshit. Now, unless you somehow prove to me and show me, give me at least the vibe that BJP is filled with Yogi Adityanaths everywhere in top leadership and CM candidates, I can't even entertain this argument. But the biggest counter to this is, why should I depend on a person's personal integrity when I have the better option of people's greed for money? The thought of profit makes people make good products for cheaper prices. That is the basic fundamental of human nature. Let people make profits. Why should I depend on the good nature of Yogi Adityanath? Now, the first obvious counter argument to that would be, why are you so trusting of the free market then? Why are you so trusting of the corporate companies or the founder of a company then? The answer is very simple. Because the company has a direct financial and economic incentive to function well without corruption. A company cannot function with corruption. So while on one hand you have the example of free markets or a company or private company who has a direct economic incentive to function without corruption for its benefits, on the other hand you have an example like Partha Chatterjee who has a direct economic incentive to be corrupt. Which is the better situation? Is Partha Chatterjee going to face some economic loss by being not corrupt? That's the case has been in India forever. The most honest person in India will be the most disadvantaged person in India, always. The more corrupt you are in India, the better your life will be, because of stupid laws and so much of welfareism. But we'll get to those points in more detail later. Okay, the point of poor people remaining poor. Yes, the transition from a lower economic class to upward mobility to becoming middle class or upper middle class or the topmost class, that's obviously highest in USA. The rags to riches stories, those haven't happened much in India. You can bring up a few Lakshmi Mittals and Dhirubhai Ambanis, but that's two examples. How many examples can you give me where a person who was born in an extremely poor family has just worked hard enough and worked hard all his life and has retired at upper middle class or middle class? And even that upper middle class, meaning what the upper middle class means in India is not what upper middle class means in USA, because of the difference in the general poverty of the country. Now, what I mean by that is, everyone doesn't have to be Elon Musk. If you create enough value for the society like Elon Musk, you will become rich. But the path to becoming Elon Musk won't be as easy in India, obviously. But what I mean is, when leftists argue against these economic policies, what they mean is that the rickshaw puller on the street, why isn't he as wealthy as Elon Musk? My counter argument to that is, I'm not talking about one person, I'm talking about the general trend of the society. And the general trend of American society is that more numbers of people become richer by the end of their life than in India. In India, generations after generations, families remain in the same economic class. And that's not really debatable. That's not even a controversial opinion. All that changed a little after 1991. Before 1991, there has been almost no social upward mobility, which brings me to that point that the elites in every country is almost equally rich, no matter how poor the rest of the country. How is that happening? In Soviet Union, in Bangladesh, or in India before 91, after 91, Pakistan, no matter what kind of country you talk about, free market, socialist, poor, rich, the elites all lead the same lives. It's the rest of the population who suffers because of welfareism. When everything was trying to be made free and no one was supposed to be holding personal property in Soviet Union, the richest of the rich were going on becoming rich. The poor were starving. Bangladesh is such a poor country. Do you think the rich people in Bangladesh have a problem with that? All of their children study in England. Same with Pakistan. Same with Sri Lanka. Same with India before 1991. India is famous for being a poor country, hungry kids. Did Nehru ever get hungry? Did Motilal Nehru ever beg on the streets? Or has any person who was begging on the street, let's say two generations later, maybe in the 60s or 70s, has their children become a good professor or something? Has a beggar's son done anything in India? No, a beggar will keep begging because of the way society functions in India. Now, since I'm not an economics professor giving you a lecture on free market economics, it's important for me to discuss this in context and in Indian context. So in that sense, I am really happy with the things Narendra Modi has been saying and has been doing, and I understand what he's trying to do. And I understand what even Yogi Adityanath is trying to do. He is making sure that free market policies, free market thinking, capitalism, all these things don't come as a shock to India. Years back when Narendra Modi came to power in 2014-15, he had used this phrase that minimum government, maximum governance. That's all anyone can ask for, unless it's a nut job libertarian who thinks society and government can absolutely disappear. But even Americans don't think that. This is one problem with people like Prakhar Gupta and Kushal Mehra. They think that America is the bastion for individualism and free market and liberty. Then why doesn't the Libertarian Party ever win? Why is it always Democrats and Republicans? Yes, Republicans and Democrats have always had policies that are more free market than Indian political parties. But if it was the end goal of Americans to have a stateless, only anarcho-capitalism as they call it, if Americans wanted that kind of a nation, they would vote the Libertarian Party, which they have never done. And they never will, because it's only a fringe minority of that country who thinks like that. Anyway, my point here is that Narendra Modi and Yogi Adityanath, in my opinion, I think is trying to ease in India towards capitalism. They are trying to make this transition as gradual and comfortable as possible. So free stuff obviously wins you elections. And on top of that, he's saying that freebies are not good. He's talking down on freebies. Just 2 days back, he said it. And the opposition has been saying that why are you giving free stuff and talking about freebies being bad in the same place? Because obviously, if someone has some minimum common sense, it's obvious that he's trying to make the transition and explaining to the people that he has given freebies that, see, it's not going to happen forever. It's going to stop someday. And that's the direction he is announcing, that someday we are going to be done with freebies. And the moment that freebies are stopped or prevented or even spoken about being stopped, Congress and all left parties and Trinamool is going to obviously go around telling those poor people who don't have the time to sit on YouTube and learn economics or listen to my video or read Thomas Sowell's books. They are going to be going around told that, see, your free stuff is gone. Now you are going to starve to death because those dishonest intellectuals and leftists, politicians, academics, authors, theoreticians, they will never tell those poor people in UP, Bihar, Bengal that if freebies are stopped, in general you will have more wealth and you will have a job where you have a salary enough where you don't need free stuff. That's not what leftist politicians and economists will tell those people. So it's going to be a fest, a clusterfuck of lies. And that's how they will, if things were up to the left and Congress and to leftist academicians, the poor people would remain poor. Another point is that a less corrupt license Raj or a lesser magnitude of license Raj doesn't mean that it's all happiness and bliss all around. It's still license Raj. You still break 1,000 laws just by existing. Tell me truthfully. Put your hand on your heart and say, have you not done one thing illegal in India? And did you not do it just because it was necessary in that moment? And you can justify anything with that word called necessary, because necessary can be subjective to you. But even little things. Everyone has broken some kind of little laws in India. And what's the problem? Why does that happen? Because we have so many laws. And we have so many meaningless laws. Like marijuana, for example. 1985, Rajiv Gandhi bans it. just because he's under pressure from USA. USA, the passion for individuality and personal freedom bans and forces other people to ban marijuana, and Rajiv Gandhi follows suit. And because Rajiv Gandhi's sense of Indianism, Indian pride, nationalism, history, culture, Rajiv Gandhi's knowledge of those things is equal to Prakhar Gupta's, and people like those, and libertarians, and even communists. So he doesn't understand that marijuana is a part of our culture, and therefore doesn't go and say strongly to USA that no, we will not ban it because it's our history. But anyway, this government with Arun Jaitley when he was alive, and with people like Sanjeev Sanyal, Bibek Debra, even Narendra Modi's vision, to give credit where it's due, have largely decreased the problems in starting a company, but they are yet to decrease the problems in closing a company. Closing a company is insanely tough in India, and which is a direct lesson it can be learned in Bengal. See, all these jute mills that were prevented from closing down or shut down because people stopped using jutes or something. And all of those companies have been prevented from shutting down because apparently their employees need to be fed, because for some reason they think, the communist governments think that the jute mill workers are born and will die only making jute. They are not going to be making anything else. They can't learn any other skill in the world. Whereas if you had let all those factories go to hell because they were not profitable, those same people, those founders, were they going to quit business and live off of their bank balance? They were going to make other companies where these same people could have been hired. So the license raj of not letting people close their companies because it's that companies are not allowed to fail, that prevents so many people from getting jobs. And this is another reason why I like Sanjeev Sanyal so much. He uses this exact phrase that companies should be allowed to fail. And this phrase sends shockwaves down the spines of Marxists. What? Companies will fail? Oh my God. Now what will happen to the employees? The employees will find no other company and no other skill set. That's not what happens in reality. That only happens in Marxist fairylands. The person who was making a company understood that it's a stupid product and stupid business. Let me close this down. Let me make another company and another business where more people can get hired. And we should learn a lesson from California in this case. It's insanely easy to close down a business. Okay, your company failed. Fuck it, make a new company. That has to be the case in India. That will solve 90% of India's problems. Then my next point is the concepts of wealth creation and a bigger pie. Now, let me quote Chanakya from 2300 years ago. He says in Arthashastra that wealth is created when economic transactions take place. Okay, this is probably not an exact quote. I think one or two words I'm paraphrasing, but that's 90% of the gist. And this is something that leftist student activists who are 17, 18, 20 years old, they don't get because they are stupid fucks. And even academicians who are 30 years old, 40 years old, they don't get because they are stupid, or they get and they deliberately lie to people so that their careers, which is founded on hating capitalism, those careers go on because they are disingenuous fucks. Wealth and money does not fall from the sky. Wealth is created, and leftists will always make this point that Jeff Bezos has made $45 billion because he has stolen, as an oppressive capitalist, he has stolen $45 billion from all of you. They don't understand the concept of wealth creation, a bigger pie. A bigger pie meaning, let's say you own 10% of a pie, and that pie is maybe costs $100, so you have 10% stake in that. But what if that pie is worth $500 and you own 5% of that? Which is better? That's what Elon Musk has done. That's what Jeff Bezos has done for their country. They have made everyone richer, and their wealth has not come from other people's products, other people's money. They have created that wealth by making economic transactions, and economic transactions happen because people give their time and effort. Everyone's time and effort in something leads to some kind of an economic growth. Now, whether that economic growth, whether that time and effort will translate into economic growth depends on what kind of economics the country has. If it is more free markets oriented, that time and worth will always be paid what it's worth. If it's a freebie oriented nation, your time and effort will go nowhere. And that brings us to one of the biggest problems with welfare societies, the black markets. Whatever you ban or criminalize is going to be available in black market. You cannot ban anything and prevent it from being available in the black market. Now, maybe we can have a legitimate conversation about banning the most extreme, generally unwanted things in society, like meth, cocaine, or heroin. But banning food that is costly, banning movies or something, that's never going to translate into an actual unavailability of that product. It's always going to be available legally. See, I used to live in Siliguri, near Siliguri, for a while, and Siliguri has huge Chinese black markets, which come from Nepal and Bangladesh. When I used to listen to Bangladeshi rock bands growing up, I used to be blown away seeing the kind of equipments Bangladeshi musicians use from 15-20 years back from now. Those sorts of instruments were unheard of in Bengal. No one had seen those with their eyes, the kind of guitars and drums they used to use. And they were either getting it because they were sons of rich people and they were buying it from outside, or they were importing it illegally. There's a great example for this in America's banning of alcohol. For a while they had banned alcohol, and as soon as that happened, hooch factories became common. Everyone was making hooch in their homes, and people started dying because of it. Because when it's legal, at least there's a legitimate company behind it. There are safety precautions taken. And when you ban those things, random people sell it from their home. People who are desperate enough to break the law, or people who have the backing of local politicians. No matter what you ban, there will be black markets. No matter what you make artificially cheap or artificially high priced, it will be available in the black markets, and you will create a parallel economy if the government meddles too much in these things. And notice how in this case welfareism is kind of similar to colonialism, that the solutions, the beautiful solutions that they offer for problems were created by them in the first place. You cannot name one problem that is solved by welfareism, that is pretended to be solved. Welfareism has never solved any actual problem, but the problems that they think of solving were created by them in the first place. Think of anything that welfareism talks about. Think of any freebie that governments talk about. It's people require it for free. People can't afford it because the government has been giving it away for free and not letting markets and companies compete among themselves to make the best product and keep its prices down. Because the government becomes a monopoly then. Government is the one company selling you this product, or government is giving the approval to one company to make this product. Like it used to happen before 1991. Only Tata and Bajaj had the right to do everything. There were no Ambanis coming up. How many industrialists did India produce before 1991? All of them were industrialists from the British era. And that's how the elites of any poor country or any socialist country remain elites, no matter what the rest of the population does. In 1947, people were begging on the streets and wearing lungi and remaining topless and bathing on the footpath, and that has largely gone on until now. And it's almost the same families. So no social upward mobility can happen if a welfare state is around. That brings us to the tons of food that is wasted in India. The farm laws that were opposed by the rich farmers of Punjab and Khalistani terrorists and dumb leftists who either don't understand economics or understand economics and tell you lies. That could have prevented this. On the one hand, people are being hungry or dying of hunger, although that does not happen in India anymore because Modi has been sending free rice to everyone. But up until a few years ago, it used to happen. So there was hunger and starvation and death from starvation on one hand, and the other hand, there are tons of produce getting wasted. How does that happen? That does not happen magically. That happens only and only because of Karl fucking Marx's policies, and because dumb leftist economists and academicians keep promoting these stuff. You force someone to sell their services artificially at a cheaper price, that cost does not decrease just because the price was decreased. That cost is going to be fulfilled by some other people in some other way. For example, let's bring up healthcare in this issue. Okay, let's discuss petrol prices. I'm so glad that Modi hadn't decreased petrol prices, because no one was going to give Modi free petrol or less petrol in lesser prices just because Congress and Trinamool are complaining about it. They were going to stop supplying petrol. You were going to have lines. That has happened in USA in the past. If you read Dr. Thomas Sowell's books, you will know of this economic history of USA. Even far right libertarian presidents have not been able to withhold their wishes for freebies and welfareism. They have bowed down to people and artificially decreased petrol prices, and that has caused a lack of petrol. There have been miles after miles long lines in petrol pumps. India didn't face that. At least there was a natural decrease for the demand by keeping those prices as high as the world needs it to be at that moment. But the moment you touch something from the government side and you artificially decrease its price, its supply will disappear, or the supply will be there, but it won't be sold to you because you are not allowed to buy it in that price, or it's absolutely a loss for me to sell it to you in that price, so I'd rather waste it. That's what happens with India's food produce. An expert in these things will probably give you the better data as to exactly what were the numbers, but that's the case. Farmers are dying, people are dying of hunger, and at the same time food is getting wasted. It's not reaching them because of socialist policies and economic stupidity. Yeah, and then we can discuss hospitals, free hospitals. Again, here in this case, American leftists like to argue that Scandinavia is a great model or Canada is a better model, but USA doesn't have any waiting periods, and in the case of health, why shouldn't waiting periods be the biggest concern, even more than money? And the presumption and the leftist counter argument would be, what if you don't have enough money for treatment? Now, the 50% of that argument is baseless, because if so much money wasn't spent on keeping free hospitals, there would generally be more prosperity in the society, and therefore the person would have the money to actually get better treatment, because he wouldn't be paying taxes for other people's free rice, that same person. But even then, there can be an argument for social responsibility and charity, which leftist party workers, left-minded party workers of all parties do anyway. The non-corrupt section of all parties, there is always a non-corrupt section in every political party who are just a nice person on the road, but they are part of some political party and they are giving free service their entire lives to some political party and getting people the government services that were supposed to be provided either by a company or by the government efficiently, but the political party leaders or the local party worker has to work his entire life for free, and he thinks that's his social responsibility for getting common people that service from the government. And if that political party worker is not a good person at heart, he will take some cut. Now coming back to health, so government hospitals in India are a joke, which is why no politician ever goes to a government hospital. And what does that imply? That it's a direct and obvious admission. Politicians are admitting that, yes, we have given these free hospitals for you stupid people. You poor people, you go to these bad hospitals. You don't deserve good hospitals. Now, I don't know how bad hospitals can be turned good with just good leadership like Yogi Adityanath. He will have to employ more administrators who will take care of the fact that it's a well-run hospital. But again, that administrator will have to be paid, which will also come out from your tax. The tax which could have been saved if I was directly paying for my own health. But anyway, the bigger concern with free healthcare and free hospitals is the waiting period, or the fact that whether at all do you get a bed or not. Let me tell you the case in Bengal. You cannot get into any Bengal government hospital unless you have contacts in Trinamool. It cannot happen. Everyone knows this, and everyone is fine with this, because somehow or some way or the other they will find some Trinamool contact. Maybe they will wait 5 days or 6 days. But if it's an emergency, if it's a health issue, and you are taking break from either, see how many ways economic disadvantages come to you if you are getting a delayed treatment. you take leave from your office because you are sick, and more importantly, your health costs or the health cost of the entire society who is giving you the free healthcare increases because they treat you later, because your disease has become more serious now. Shouldn't that be compared? And then it comes to the actual physical suffering, the mental suffering, and how much that physical and mental suffering leads you to not be economically productive in the future. All these needs to be calculated, which is impossible to calculate. All these needs to be at least kept in mind while discussing the so-called free healthcare and free government hospitals. Canada has a gigantic waiting period. England has a gigantic waiting period, and their hospital staff can't be fired. Even their government hospitals are filthy. Thomas Sowell has written in their books, because the hospital's administrators don't have the right to fire anyone. So when the moment you give someone a job for their life, they won't be good at it, and that's somehow a surprising thing for Indians to understand, or at least Indian leftists to understand. Now, let's discuss the point I wrote down as charities and social responsibility, because the leftist would argue what's wrong with a government thinking of poor people and being charitable and giving free stuff as a social harmony thing. We have already discussed why it's wrong, but the biggest problem is that the government is a faceless entity. The government is not a person, but an actual charity is taken from a person or an organization that you are directly connected to. Because and why is that better than a government giving you free stuff? Because that is happening consensually in the first place. The person who is giving you donations, or the NGO that is giving you free stuff, everyone has donated to that NGO with their own wishes, whatever their capabilities. They have donated without that donation affecting the rest of their lifestyle. But when the government is taking your money and giving other people free stuff with your money, that's not happening with your consent. And you are not even consenting to half the things that government is giving away for free. We are not just talking about healthcare when we are talking about government subsidies and freebies. We are talking about Hajj pilgrimage. We are talking about farm laws and farm subsidies. Is there a consensus on that? Is every Indian supportive of that? What if there's tomorrow a vote on what are the things that we actually allow for it to happen in free? See, that brings me to the Ram Mandir example. Now, if I was discussing Ram Mandir isolated, without looking at it from the larger context, yes, I would be against the government making it. Why can't Hindus donate and come together and Hindu industrialists make Ram Mandir? But considering the fact that so many freebies are given away without my consent, with my money, by the government to people I don't want to help, then even Hindus deserve Ram Mandir. Now, no matter how prosperous the society, some people will always fall through the cracks. Some people will always be poor. Maybe it's because their mental health, maybe it's because they're low IQ, or maybe it's just that they are not as hardworking as other people. Maybe they are corrupt. Maybe they made bad choices in life. What happens with those people? Even in USA, you can go and get yourself admitted if you have a physical emergency. No one gets kicked out from that hospital. American leftists only pretend that happens, and that can be the case in India as well. When it's a street emergency, a poor person has gotten hit by a truck, let them be taken to a government hospital and be treated, for emergencies at least. And for other people like that, there are charities. First of all, there are charities already now, and they can increase when there is lack of freebies, because people will have more wealth and people will realize that there is a need to donate. It's not like people are against donations in India. People generally have a good heart. Now, it's pretty funny that people donate so much in India, in all these keto.org and so many other donation sites. That's funny because we are already paying so much taxes for poor people to get free stuff, and then on top of that we are donating because we are so nice people. And leftists think that the moment free markets come into being, society is going to fall apart because everyone is going to think of their profit. Americans think of their profit. America is a profit-oriented society, and look at the amount of charities that are existent in USA. Now, their charities want to take conversion actions in India. That's the problem. But in USA, that's not the case. Inside USA, they don't have anyone to convert. Every rich person, every middle class to upper middle class to the upper class, have countless foundations and charities that they donate to. And the people who take the help of these people, these rich people or these foundations, they feel a gratitude towards them. They don't feel entitled towards them. And the people who are donating, they are doing it with their own consent. And when you feel the gratitude, maybe you take the steps and you think that, okay, now I need to take steps in my life so that I don't need these charities again. But when you get free ration for your entire life over generations after generations, you think that's your God-given right to get free healthcare, free food, free school, free college, free hospital, free rations. That's the case in India. Indians think it's their God-given right to get free stuff. Right before Congress went out of power, Sonia Gandhi was making right to this, right to that, right to this. Shekhar Gupta was joking that the only thing left was to declare right to not be defeated by Pakistan in a cricket match. Just because you declare something a God-given right, just because you declare something a fundamental basic human right, does not make it a basic human right. And nor does it make it appear magically from the sky. Let's say South Africa has a basic right to a lot of other things, and I think housing is one of them. Everyone has a right to live in a house or something, and even healthcare. But they have a lack of both hospitals, doctors, and houses. Because you have to create economic incentives for people to make those products, not just artificially create demands for that product by making it free. Then there's no connection between the demand and the supply. So let's make it clear that when someone defends free markets, when I talk about free markets, I don't mean that the richest person, the poorest person or the handicapped person can go fuck himself. That's not what I'm saying. Free markets always is prerequisited by strong law and order and charities. Charities will have to exist, and when I say it will have to exist, doesn't mean make laws for charities that don't make laws for people to become charitable persons. It will happen naturally, because most people want to help other people in some way or the other. But most people don't have the money to help other people because they are already giving away taxes in every step of their life for free stuff for the other people they don't want to help. That brings me to the issue of this idea that Indians are corrupt. Indians, no matter what the political spectrum, go around spreading this nonsense that we Indians are very corrupt. That doesn't explain why magically suddenly Indians become not corrupt when the moment they go to USA. How does that happen? The US visa is some sort of a magic talisman that makes them non-corrupt. So it's never the person who is corrupt, it's the system. If a system incentivizes corruption, it will create corrupt people. Like I was saying about Partha Chatterjee, he didn't grow up dreaming to be a corrupt person. He realized that it's great, it's beneficial for him if he is corrupt. That's not the case with companies. For companies, it's a problem if they are corrupt, at least inside the company. If they are in cahoots with the government in a corrupt way, that's a different problem. That should even promote more free market, because they are in cahoots with the government, because the government has the power to give them favors. But I'm saying the government should not have the power to give them favors. So anyway, coming back to people like Partha Chatterjee, like I was saying yesterday, even in the Bengal update video, that people don't care really that he has 50 crores in his house. People have known this forever. Not exact amounts and all. People generally know that almost every Trinamool top leadership is corrupt and they have hands in black money. And why don't they care? Because they have a thing called Lokhir Bhandar, where they get 500 fucking bucks in the month, and they have a Shastro Sathi card, which is free government insurance, which is not accepted by most hospitals, because the government knows because the private hospital knows that the government won't be paying those Shastro Sathi insurances later on. And if and you need political contacts, and you have to beg in Trinamool party offices to even get the Shastro Sathi cards. Then there are Shobuj Sathi free cycles given to people and stuff. So if the local politician and the local party office takes care of you from birth to death, they give you free ration, free hospital, free college, free everything, then you obviously think of your local politician as your deity. And your deity can do no wrong, and so your deity can have 50 crore rupees in his girlfriend's house. What would be the problem? Partha Chatterjee's corruption has been incentivized by the system. he has been given the power to act like a deity by giving people free stuff, and that's how he has accumulated the 50 crore rupees. It has not happened out of the blue. If hypothetically Partha Chatterjee was now, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to be equally corrupt. All I'm saying is that some people will bypass incentives of being corrupt and remain non-corrupt no matter what. But why give people the chance anyway? Why provoke and check if people are good people or bad people? Why not create a system where there is no economic incentive to be corrupt? If Partha Chatterjee hypothetically was a person who went to USA to study and get a job, he was not going to be this corrupt. He was not going to have 50 crore rupees of black money in his home. That has been entirely created by Marxist ideologies, because Marx has been suggesting, or at least predicting, or at least Marxists have this idea that the Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos will fuck you because they are so rich. But Partha Chatterjee has 50 crore rupees in his house. He is not going to fuck you. Trinamool is preventing fascism in Bengal. So if you have to prevent fascism, you have to give 50 crore rupees. And the evil capitalist has also been prevented because they are giving away so much free stuff. So that's the basic flaw in socialist thinking. They think the government will solve every problem, the government will innovate everything, the government will execute every organization and take a huge chunk of society's money for it, and for their administrators and for their bureaucracies and for their agencies who will watch over the bureaucracies.